Hi guys, nice to have you online. Just two apologies to make in the beginning. First of all, I generally talk to people in front of an audience, so talking to a computer and seeing you online is going to be a totally new experience for me, which I'm looking forward to. Secondly, I'm absolutely passionate about what I do, so if my voice goes soft, you'll notice that I've jumped out of my chair and run to the other side of the room. So let's go ahead and see what we're going to talk about today. And as Yvette said, you guys got questions, just feel free to stick it through the chat box and she'll stop me along the way and ask the questions. So 3 keys to success. First one is knowing your destination we're going to cover. And that's really about the importance of gaining clarity around your strategic goals. Second of all, in going to your destination, we need to know where we're going. And that's all about really playing to your unique strengths, because this is really the vehicle to your excellence and efficiency. And thirdly is something that's really dear to my heart that I've been playing with for the last 40-odd years, is handling stress and worry, because we know nothing goes according to plan in life. And something is going to hit the fan at some stage when you're not expecting it. So we need to develop coping strategies for when these occur. And I'll share with you some personal techniques that I've used along the way. And believe me, things will happen. So hopefully some of the little tools I share with you today will really be of effect to you. I've only got 45 minutes to go through what I normally go through in 3-4 days. So please, if there's questions at the end that I haven't covered, get hold of me. I'm on mikegalgut.co. Send me a question. I'd be delighted to answer that. The Director Institute has also asked me to make a special offer to you for one-on-one sessions afterwards. In keeping with the number 3, I'll be offering 3 packages at the end of the webinar. So let's get started. A bit about my journey. Well, the first question you're probably asking yourself is, why should you be spending some of your valuable time with me today? And why should you be listening to me? And has, in fact, the most important question, has he done all of this himself? All good questions to ask, and the answer is that everything I share with you today, I use myself, and I use it daily. Some of it, as I mentioned, I've been using for over 35 years, and I'll try to share some of the journey with you as how I use this in business and, of course, in my personal life. So, a very brief background on my journey. 1978, I graduated as a mechanical engineer, and as all good engineers do, I went into big business and I joined Unilever, making all those soaps and all the stuff that you use around the house. As part of my rotation, I was actually sent to do a stint in what they call the non-soapy detergent section of Unilever, which is a place that really makes your Omo and your Surf and all the stuff that you use in your washing machines. I got on exceptionally well with a manager, and he just happened to like the way in which I approached all the mechanical engineering problems we had, and asked me to go off my training program, become factory engineer. Most amazing manager, and of course I jumped at the opportunity. As life would have it, he joined another company, and I was landed up with a new manager who I just happened to cross swords with during the 6 months that I was in the non-soapy detergent, and he became our manager. And of course, I didn't last there very long, and I lost my first job. So that's the first job I was fired from, and probably the best thing that could have happened to me, because I'll talk to you about that later, because I probably, had that not happened, I wouldn't have been here today talking to you. I come from a little town called Durban, and there was absolutely no jobs in Durban, so I moved up to Johannesburg and joined Coca-Cola and became production manager there, where I learned some of the biggest lessons in strategic planning and how companies actually approach the planning process. Saw business wasn't right for me, so in 1985 I went into my own business, and that was financial planning. And I found a niche in the market because people were selling insurance and they were selling investments, and I found I was rather selling strategic thinking, and from process of everything I learned in business. And again, I'll allude to the way in which we developed our business later on down the line. 1989 I immigrated to Australia, and I found that the people that I dealt with here had the same problems that the counterparts in South Africa had. So I started to develop a strategic planning tool to help people clarify their goals and just keep them on track to realize their dreams and ambitions. In 2000, the industry turned on its head and we had to change our business, and myself and two partners founded InvestorHead. And we had a goal to build the business and sell it by 2006, 2007. And we achieved that completed sale July 2007. Perfect timing, I think. And my two partners retired and now traveling the world and left me to work. I stayed on until last year when my service contract was cancelled. Another good thing that happened to me. I like to use the word cancelled because I fired for my first job and my last job. Perfect timing because my passion was waning in big corporate. And I was being drawn more and more to helping people with their careers anyway. And I was already considering board positions with the Director Institute. I'm still consulting back to a number of clients, and I've looked back since 1991, and one client I'm looking after today who's stuck me on contract for 3 years, I started with them back in 1991. And I suppose that's one of the greatest compliments I've had, to have such a loyal and trusting relationship with the clients. By that time, I'd built up about $1 billion of funds under management. We were running that with only 5 people. The industry average would need about 15 or 20 people to do the same thing. And it was all about really working to people's skill sets. It was working efficiently. It was looking to technology to assist us with repetitive tasks and a lot of the grudge work. I asked my partner a few weeks ago what the profitability of our company was, and he staggered me by telling me our business was running at 65% profitability. By 2014, I calculated our salary to revenue basis, and staff salary to revenue was only 5%. So that's quite good numbers, and I think I attribute it all back to the way in which we ran the business. And that's probably the tools I'm going to share with you today. And of course, these tools are easy to implement. I'm a very lazy guy at heart. I would like things easy. I like them to work. So it's like really driving a car. You know, you learn to drive the car, and then everything goes in automatic. And you don't ask the car how it drives. You just drive the car. And I suppose those are the keys I'll go through with you today. So the first thing is about knowing your destination. So let's just imagine for a moment that you've been called to an interview at the Spit Bridge. And the interview you're going to is for a new position, and if you get this job, you are going to earn $1 million in your first year. So it's quite an incentive to get there, but you have to be there by 3 o'clock in the afternoon on the dot. So what are you going to do in order to get there on time? You're going to pull out your map. You're going to have a look at where you are now. You're going to have a look at the best route to take, and you can see that in blue. You're going to work out probably how long it's going to take as well, because you're going to, you just don't, you want to be there at 3 o'clock. That $1 million is really on play there. Then you're probably also going to look at and say, well, is there a better way? I mean, can we find a better way? Go by ferry, miss all the traffic, because you know what Sydney traffic is like in the afternoon. If your car is the best route, no doubt you're going to check that there's enough petrol in the car, that the traffic conditions are going to be okay. And more than likely, you're going to ask yourself, if there is congestion on the road, is there an alternative route? Now, how many of you get into your car with your partner, and we jump in the car, turn left out the garage, and your partner says to you, where are you going? You say, well, I don't know. Well, what time do we have to be there? I don't know. So that just doesn't happen in real life. You jump in your car, you know where you're going, you know what time you have to be where you've got to be. And it staggered me that over the last 30 years in business, I find that a lot of people spend more time planning their trips and their holidays than they do planning their future. And very few ask themselves, what is my long-term goal? Where am I going to be? Am I actually going to get there? Well, how are you going to get there if you don't know where you're going is a question I always ask them. So let's just have a look at some of the survey results. So what we've got to do in terms of these survey results, and I asked you guys these questions, is I asked you how old you were. I asked you what age you're going to retire. I asked you what type of income you're going to need. And from that, I was going to really do the calculation to see how much investable assets you need in order to retire comfortably. And those are the assets that you need to accumulate. And I'm going to go through, because we've got two types of assets. We've got investable assets and we've got consumable assets. But let's just run through the numbers of the survey. Now, you'll see that the average age of the audience today is 48. Average retirement age across the board that I got from the survey was around about 65. And the average income required was around about 12 grand a month. Now, the reason I wanted to use these is because the Westpac survey numbers come out at about $56,000 a year. And quite honestly, that is well below my experience in the last 30 years with all my clients across the board. You know, an overseas trip will cost you 20 grand. And, you know, out of a 50 grand a year, that leaves you only 30 grand to live. It's just not realistic across the client base that I deal with anyway. So really what we've got to do from there onwards is ask ourselves, what amount of investable assets do I need in order to generate 144,000 for the rest of time? And when I look at investable assets, a lot of people get confused, especially when they take other things into account. Let's talk about what consumable assets are. Consumable assets don't generate income. Investable assets generate income. So when we look at consumable assets, you need to take out of consumable assets things like your boat, your car, and your home. So your home might be worth $6 million, but it just doesn't generate income for you at the time. You might be selling the house, downsizing, and then release some of that money into investable assets, and that's fine. But then the home that you're living with in the future, again, is a consumable asset. So I'm now going to put up what amount of investable assets you need in order to generate $144,000 a year. And what I've done here is taken into account the fact that you need to keep up with inflation. So it's inflation linked. It's a future target that you need in order to generate $144,000 in today's money at age 65, increasing with inflation every year because you don't want to get caught. Now, what I want to ask you is to register two things. The minute I put the number up, I want to register your first two reactions. Are you ready? Here we go. Now, was it something like that? Was it, oh my God, how the hell am I going to do that? If so, brilliant, because we all talk to ourselves on a regular basis. We talk to ourselves all the time. Now, probably some are nodding, yeah, I talk to myself all the time. Others of you are sitting looking at the roof saying, do I talk to myself? Well, if that was your reaction, your brain is already working on the problem. And it's probably saying, well, maybe you should be listening to this guy. He's got some valuable insights for you. Maybe your brain is saying to you, yeah, you better start planning. You need to start taking control of your work and career. You see, your subconscious brain is programmed to answer anything that you ask of it. So it's already working on the problem we're discussing and that you're listening to me now. I'll dive into the brain a little later. But let's just go over the first three key takeaways on key number one. Know where you are today. That is, what is your financial position? What is your net wealth? Where are you along your career path? Are you happy? Are you productive? Are you profitable? The next thing you need to know is where you need to be. And that is what assets are needed in order to generate the income you require at retirement, or what I call your financial position of security. Because a lot of us are really going to go past age 65, we're going to carry on working because purely for the love of working. But you want to get up in the morning saying, oh, I feel like going to golf, if I feel like going surfing, as Yvette pointed out, I'm going surfing because I know I'm there. I'm doing stuff that I love doing, and it'll generate income for me. And then you need to know what you need to do to get there. And that goes back to how much do I need to invest on an annual basis to achieve those assets? If you own your own business, do I turn my business into an exit asset? How big do I need to grow my business in order to accomplish those goals? If you're employed, what actions do you need to take to maximize return on your investments? Which brings us really to the next important key, and that's knowing how to get there efficiently. So the questions you need to ask yourself first of all is, are you living up to your potential? Am I successful as I really should be? If I asked you if you're happy in your career, what would you truly answer? There's so much riding on that answer because it encompasses not only your work, but your life and naturally your family. Now, Gallup's survey, in fact, showed that a large number of people are not happy in their jobs. And that is, the survey in Australia was in excess of 80% of people were unhappy in their jobs. My survey fortunately gave better results, and just over half were really happy in their jobs. But still, 50% in my books is still far too many who are unhappy. And the reason most people I find are not happy in their jobs is because they're frustrated, not only with the company, with the management, with the work they're doing, and with what they were born really to do. So the bottom line is really to ask yourself, what am I good at? What was I born to do? And the answer to that is you need to know who you really are. What makes you tick? What makes you want to jump out of bed in the morning? I know what makes me jump out of bed in the morning. It's just I'm absolutely passionate about what I do on a daily basis with my clients and life in general. And let's just see if you recognize any of these personal quirks in yourself. Are you the type of person who just talks to anyone in lifts, at parties, at the coffee shop? Do you recognize that if you're that type of person, you have the most amazing gift for establishing rapport very easily with strangers and making people like you? I mean, this is a wonderful gift to have. Do you look for that familiar face at a big party or gathering at a networking conference? Do you walk in, see this big crowd and say, well, who do I know? If you're that type of person, you may well have the talent to form deep, trusted relationships, which makes for long, great customer service and loyalty. Now, I'm one of those people. I'm a very deep relationship person, and probably that was one of the highlights of client loyalty over the 20 years that I was in business, is forming those deep relationships with those people. Are you the type of person that makes lists of things to do and you stick to it? If so, I'm sure that if you're that type of person, you'll get things done. You'll deliver on your promises. And do you have to tick off something by the end of the day? Otherwise, it's just you don't feel like that anything has been achieved during the day. Are you the type of person that goes with the flow? This is an adaptability type person. Are you aware just how great that talent is to have that type of person around really when things go off the rails, and your ability to really be able to change at a minute's notice? That type of person handles change very well and also puts a calming effect on the rest of the people around them. Do you have a color-coded or organized wardrobe? If you do, you may very well have a great insight into arranging and optimizing resources around you. Imagine if you could consciously use this to coordinate teams. Amazing results. Somebody just typed in the chat box, that's me. Well, I bet you didn't know that your cupboard can tell a lot of stories about you. How about racing from traffic lights? Do you hear that person revving next to you and looks at your car? And you've got to have a little race with him to the next traffic light? Well, you're that competitive type. And probably in business, if given a target, you'll always hit those targets, and probably exceed them too if somebody's just ahead of you in the race. So these are little clues as to who you really are and what makes you so special. So the key to unlock what you're good at is really to understand the type of person you are. And once you've identified these type of traits, and you can start unlocking these strengths. So how does it really work? Let's have a just look at some results, because these type of results will show you that the amount of amplification you get when you talk about strengths in action. So what we're going to show you here is really, some years ago, there was a lot of activity done in the speed reading courses and looking at people who can read well and how much they could accelerate their speed reading if they taught how to read faster. And Don Clifton, who was the father of the strength system, which I'll talk about a little later, had the opportunity to study the relationship between growth and talent. And they took a group of readers and sent them on a speed reading course and measured the changes in the group before and after the course. So at the beginning of the course, the average reader, and I'm probably one of those people, reading at 90 words a minute. The above average person was reading at 350, and this is before the course. By the end of the course, the average reader nearly doubled his reading speed to 150. What do you think a naturally talented reader increased his reading speed by? Well, can you believe it was nearly 2,900 words a minute? Now, that is just what they did naturally. And what they did is concentrated on their strengths, did the course, and really you can just see what happens. And it staggers me because it goes back to my school days. And can you imagine if our teachers focused on our good subjects rather than our bad subjects, and had a look at that D and that E in our reports and sent us home to do more work on our bad subjects, the subjects we really hated. Now again, these are obviously theoretical results, but when applied to business, the same results play out time and time again. And I'll share these results with you a little later again when I talk about how we managed our own business. So the challenge here is really to find out what your strengths are and bring that out into your daily life. And how do we do that? And here are some more clues. First of all, have you noticed that you just get drawn to certain subjects? That's really a yearning for that. Some people just love analyzing companies and balance sheets. I couldn't think of anything worse, quite honestly. Others love brainstorming new sales ideas, and other people just can't sit at their desk for more than 20 minutes. They've just got to get up and say hello to their clients. And these, again, are yearnings to do these type of things that you really enjoy. I think something that I experience on a daily basis, something I look for, and I look for in my staff, is at the end of the day, they turn around, or you turn around and say, oh, what a great day it was today. Really, really enjoyed it and can't wait to get back and do the same thing tomorrow. Rapid learning is another clue. Is you notice you pick up things very quickly, and you just enjoyed learning that new thing. If that is the case, you should just really have a good look into that and what you tend to pick up. Glimpses of excellence, which is an interesting one, is you do something and somebody turns around to you and says, how on earth did you do that? And you just didn't realize, you just did it. And you didn't even know you were doing it so well. And then you ask yourself, how did I do it? It just seemed so natural, but it wasn't natural to somebody else. And one of the most important things I look for is flow. And flow is probably the biggest clue, and it's when 2 hours just feel like 2 minutes. You've put your head down to do something, and next thing it's the end of the day. If you work on that presentation or that calculation or that new idea for that new product, and the next thing it was the end of the day, and you look at your watch and say, where did the day go? But there's another more scientific way of doing that, and that is Gallup has brought in the StrengthsFinder system, and you can really go online, spend 35 minutes, do the test, and it really highlights what your strengths and talents are, and you can start working on those areas. And again, we will talk about that. Does this really work in business? Does strengths and unlocking those unique strengths work in business? Well, let me give you a case study. Again, going back to our business, InvestAhead. When we started InvestAhead, the three of us got together, my two business partners, Chandra, Don, and myself, got together and said to ourselves, or we didn't say to ourselves, said to each other, what do you do well? What do I do well? What does Chandra, what does Don do well? And let's build a company and stick to the areas that we do well. Chandra, being an accountant by profession and one of the best financial planners and businessmen I've ever met, said, I can run the business, I can do the financial planning, I can do the compliance, I can do everything in that area. I don't like really going out marketing for clients. Don loves the one-on-one relationships, and I love the mentoring, and I love the presentations, I love the education, I love the group stuff. So we all basically said, right, this is what we will do. We will stick to our area, and gave each other the authority to do what we wanted to do, when we wanted to do it, and how we wanted to do it. So Chandra, we said to him, although we're in the business together, you run the company as if it's your own. When you want to sell the business, however you want to sell the business, you sell the business. We have worked out our strategy, we've worked out our numbers, we've got our target. When you're ready to sell, you just sign the documents, you don't even have to come to us. And again, when I was punting on the bigger side of the business, they gave me total leeway to really get the business in the way I wanted and the cost structure that I wanted to do. So I never had to report to anybody to ask their permission. And we handed this power down to our staff as well. And we said to our staff, run the business the way you feel you would run the business. You've got control. You've got the power. We are empowering you to make the decisions you need to do in order to make that client happy. And all I want to hear from the client is, wow. And really, that is really what really gave everybody impetus to feel that they were part of the business. They could really work on the clients and make the clients happy. So we were there ready to move the obstacles out the way, any roadblocks along the way with the staff. We could really just help them get around it and get to where they've got to go. So we never ever gave them a process of, you need to follow steps A, B, C to reach D. We told them, you're at A, you need to reach D, do it in the most efficient way. And again, if you touch it twice, automate it. And we worked very closely with Elcom Technology on a lot of the automation, and what we could do in 2 minutes was taking other companies nearly 2 hours. Now, how did it work with clients? I had a client last year, one of the 87% unhappy at work, lost at sea about their career, not happy in the job, was looking for another career move, didn't know what they wanted to do, did not want to get back to where they were in this existing job. So what we did is we did their top 5 for them, and then sat down and started designing their ideal role and their ideal career path. And then we went back to her job description that she was given by the potential company she was going for an interview with, and we redesigned her whole job based on her strengths portfolio, or her strengths, top 5 strengths, and took out the areas that really wouldn't appeal to her and really amplified things that she could do well and actually added more things. When she went for the interview, she explained to her potential employer what her strengths were and how applying them, she could actually add more value to the company than just that plain old job description. Employer actually loved this and said, yep, you're hired, gave her the job, and she's absolutely firing on all cylinders. I tried to phone her the other day. She couldn't talk to me. She was having too much fun at business and wanted to rather talk to me after work, which is something that gave me no end of pleasure. So really, that if you just write these down now, these next 3 keys to this third key, is first of all to unlock your unique strengths. Go and do a strength test. Look where your strengths lie. What makes you so good at what you do? We can show you how to have a look and uncover those from the report if you like, and at the end I will talk to you about a strengths debrief. But doing those top 5 are going to really be quite an eye-opener for you. They were for me when I did them. Even though I subconsciously knew what I was good at, I still did that strengths test last year, and it really gave me a lot of clarity that what I was doing right, and I should be doing more of what I was good at there. The next thing is to manage around your weakness. And this is really where you're sitting down doing something and 2 minutes just feels like 2 hours. So it's the opposite of 2 hours feeling like 2 minutes. 2 minutes just is taking so long to get by. And look at those things that you don't enjoy doing. Sure, there's been times when you have to do them, but you consider them a waste of time. We'll manage around those and start looking for ways around them, which really brings me to the third key, is sometimes people actually enjoy doing the things that you hate doing and hate doing the things that you love doing. So why not look at partnering with these people? Sorry?
So there's a question that's just come up, Mike. Says, can you give an example of how you did that? So how do you actually manage it?
Just going back to our situation at work, is I mentioned that I'm a high relationship person. Chandra was as well, and Don was a high relationship person. We never had anybody out there that could really go into more the networking side of things. And we brought on board Will Buttrose, Ita Buttrose's brother, and Will and I had been friends for many, many years. And I kept on saying to him, Will, whenever you're ready to leave Mercantile Mutual ING, there's a desk waiting for you here, there's an office waiting for you here, you're welcome any time. And the one day he came and he said, time for coffee, walked into my office and without another word said, where's my office? And I got up and I said, there's your office. Will's job was only one thing, go and have drinks with people, have lunch with your friends and cohorts, and go to the networking events. And he was an absolute genius at all of this. He used to come back in the afternoon, Mike, I've got 6 referrals, I've got 5 referrals, and he brought in some of the biggest business that we had. And once he'd created that relationship, he would take me in, I would open the problem, solve the client's problem, and build the relationship there where Will would go on to the next one. And at a stroke of a pen, we quadrupled our business in 1 year. So that is the power of partnership. Going on to the next one is really about handling stress and worry. Now this is something that comes up on a daily basis. It comes up on a weekly basis. It comes up on an annual basis. And something happens at work and we start worrying about things. And this is probably one of the biggest areas that changed my life, going right back to 1976 when I said to you, I started working on these techniques back in so many years ago. 1976 this was the first technique I started working on, and I'll give you a story about that as well. But the whole thing is about what is worry, and how would you guys define worry? Well, the definition for me is basically worry is the misuse of your imagination, and that is all it is. Remember on early slides we were saying that we were talking to ourselves? Well, this self-talk can be either constructive or enormously destructive. And again, I repeat, there's 2 parts to our brain. We've got our conscious and we've got our subconscious. And our subconscious just carries out the orders that we are given. That we're giving it, it doesn't ask why, it just does what we talk. For example, you decide to walk down the street. You just get up, you decide to walk, you walk. You don't work out how you're going to walk. You've given your brain an instruction, let's start walking. And then you decide to turn left, you turn left. Your subconscious, your eye doesn't register the brain to say, hang on a minute, there's a wall in the way. It just will turn left. Then you'll filter out, hang on, there's a wall in the way, I better make a decision. So that's what we're doing with our worry. We're just creating a future in our brain that hasn't even occurred yet. And guess what? Your subconscious will now have to make that reality. Let me give you an example. You're working on a proposal with a client and you just can't get the costs that your competitors are offering, and your competitors are slick salesmen. So you start questioning your ability. Why can't I get to these numbers? I'm going to lose the client. I can't compete with him. Well, what you've just done is you've just given your brain an instruction. You've asked a destructive question, you've given it an instruction, and it's got to find an answer for you. So what does your subconscious say? The reason you can't do it is because you're an idiot. And okay, if you want to lose the client, I'm going to help you stuff up your submission. And I'm going to block all the new ideas that could possibly help you with that submission. So whatever you ask of your subconscious, it's got to give you an answer. So why not rather turn around and say, well, how can I do it? What's the best way of achieving? Because after all, you know, a customer's not looking for cost only at the end of the day. What they're doing if they're a customer is they're looking for you to help solve their problems. And really that's a topic for another day. But cost is not everything. It's helping them solve the problem. So you need to be asking yourself, not why can't I, it's how can I? And we'll get on to that also again in the later stage. You saw an earlier slide, you asked yourself, well, how am I going to do that? And as I said earlier, brilliant question to ask. Your subconscious was already working on the problem. And it's already working on positive outcomes because you said to yourself, how am I going to work this out? And your subconscious is saying, well, let's start a plan. Let's listen to what this guy has to say. Let's see if these tools will really work for me. And that brings me really on to the next issue, is about labeling. Labeling things bad. Think about your past jobs, your first loves, your loss of a business, your loss on the stock market. You had a sudden stock market collapse. You had a bad investment. Like me, you got fired from your first job. We've all experienced disaster in some shape or form. And our thoughts were, this is the end of the world. This is bad. I'm in serious trouble. I'm never going to get out of this. Well, in the end it worked out, didn't it? If you look at nearly every disaster that has happened to you in your past life, you'll come to one of 2 startling conclusions. Wasn't that bad. And you wouldn't have been in that position today had that not happened to you, such as family, your new job, your immigration to a new country, your house. Hey, maybe it was good. So, if its case is, you need to ask yourself, was it bad in the first place? But all you did was at the time, you put a negative label onto it. And at the time, you didn't know if it was going to be good or bad. You just put that bad label onto it. And now you have to deal with that label. So you told your subconscious it was bad. The subconscious said, well, okay, I need to make that into reality, and things started getting bad. But when you look at it now, as I've looked in my past life, is those things, in fact, the bad things that happened, in fact, I should have put a good label on it. And those are the facts. As I told you back in 1976 when I changed my life around, that's really what I started doing. And that leads me on to the next tool. There's always a good reason for it. If there's a crisis and it invariably turns out for the better, then why not look at it in a good light from the first place? The lessons you learned from them, the opportunities that arose from them, the great outcomes that came from them. You see, there's always a good reason why things happen to you. It's just sometimes they take a longer time to come to fruition. And I call this technique looking for the seed of equivalent benefit. And as you know, seeds take time to grow. And I could go on for absolute days about this, and I've got a myriad of stories on how this has worked for me in life. But I'd just like to share one of them back in 1976 when I thought the world was going to collapse around me. And I read a book called How to You Can Create Your Own Miracles. And it was all about looking for a good reason in a bad situation. And I was in the second year university, convinced I was going to fail, as I did in the first year. And when I come crashing down, I come crashing down in flames. I don't do things by halves, as some of you might know. I do things in big chunks. First year university, I failed 8 out of 10 subjects, which is, I think, a record. Got to the next stage in second year university, finding a battle, and again, I thought I was going to crash again. And I read this book, and it was all about trying to find a good reason why these things are happening to you. And it was the day before my physics exam. I was working on a problem, and it was a huge problem, and I just couldn't get this problem worked out. So I went to my lecturer, knocked on his door, no answer, and I needed him to help me with this problem. Nobody there, and I turned around and I said to myself, you know, there's a good reason why he's not there. Maybe the reason is I need to work this out for myself. And I ran back up saying, yeah, it's a good reason why we need to work this out for myself. Tried to work it out. An hour later, I still hadn't worked it out. I went down to him again, same thing, not there. And I ran back and I said, well, there's a good reason why this is happening. Maybe I need to work this out for myself. I don't know why, but I need to work this out for myself. And this happened a number of times. I think by 7 o'clock in the evening, I'd given up the fact that he wasn't going to be there. And eventually, I worked this out for myself. And I got to the end, and I went step by step by step, and it was absolutely the greatest feeling that I was able to work this out for myself. And I said, that's the reason why he wasn't there. I had to work it out for myself to show that I could do it. Well, that wasn't the reason. Because I showed up at the physics exam the next day, opened up my book, question 2 for 25% was this question. Now, had I gone to him, I know I would have said, yeah, okay, that's how you do it, and I would have left it and moved on to something else. Now, we might say this is all fairy tales, it's all up in the air, but believe me, that wasn't the first thing and the first example I had of what I called the seed of equivalent benefit.
So Mike, Sarah's just asking, as an executive, how do you manage this with your team? Can you give her like a business example?
Yeah, sure. How's our time going? We've got time. 1:42. Yes, we've got some time quickly. I had a big client, was generating in excess of 6 figures annual income for us, and company politics got in the way. We lost that client. And my staff were absolutely distraught. We'd lost this client. It was big, big numbers. And I just sat down with them and I said, look, there's a good reason why this is happening. The client has been an 80% problem. We've been spending 80% of our resources on this client. They haven't been a good client over the years, although we've been earning good money. Let it go. There's something in the wings for us. My business partners turned around and said, well, we've lost that money. How are we going to make it up? We will make it up by bringing in XYZ amount of clients by June, which they did, and we covered that. But Will, as I mentioned before, brought in some business. And we managed to sign that business up, which was actually 4 times the size of the contract that we lost. Now, had we kept that contract, we wouldn't have been able to handle the new job, the new contract that came in. So we lost one. The staff thought it was bad. We're trying to realign their thinking to say it's a good thing, there's a reason for it, and thank goodness within 3 months it started bearing fruit and we started bringing in. And that client there is a loyal client absolutely today, and one of the clients that I'm looking after in business now after I'm out the industry has asked me to come back in to look after them. So what are the 3 things we take away from this? Use quality questions. Start asking yourself, how can I, not why can't I? Now, you're going to have these disasters. They're going to come up. You're going to hit these stress. All you need to do is understand that it's going to happen, and when it does happen, just reframe immediately. Stop yourself from thinking, the why can't I can't do it. Stop right there and just say to yourself, well, how can I do it? And sleep on it. Just let it go. Ask yourself, how can you? Let your subconscious take over. Resist labeling things as bad. Just don't label anything. If things happen to you, they happen, and they're just there. So if you're going to label anything, label it as good, as I do, because there's always a good reason why things happen. And if something, disaster happened, there's a good reason that's going to come out of it. And all of you, I'm sure, have suffered the heartbreak, thought it was the end of the world, the love of your life has disappeared, and guess what? You wouldn't have had the kids. If you're married with kids, you wouldn't have had those kids that you love so much today had that not happened to you there. So there is a good reason. You can just look at your kids, and there's your good reason, and there's proof in the pudding. So here's the invitation today. There are a couple of questions still, but I know I've run out of time. I'll get onto those questions. Can you guys do me a favor? Just connect with me on mikeyalger.co or the boardofadvice.com, which you'll see now. But we've, for this group of people, we've designed 3 packages for you. The first one is a personal debrief, where you can go online, we will set you up online, you can do your strengths test, and then we will sit with you and do a 90-minute debrief and really highlight what areas are your unique strengths, where you should be concentrating, what areas that maybe you should be passing off to somebody else, and don't get all hassled about things that you don't do well, because concentrate on what you do well, because that's what's going to get you where you've got to go. So we will spend a 90-minute, I'd probably run for 2 hours if anything like me, my 2 minutes again. Second of all, if you guys want to do an extended course, it's a 3-month debrief with you. You'll do the program, you'll do a 90-minute debrief, and then every 2 weeks you'll sit with myself and my colleague Yvette here, and we will do an hour session every 2 weeks for 3 months, and then we'll do a final debrief at the end of 3 months to see where all your strengths are, how they're operating for you, and really getting you on the go. Again, peer pressure, there's nothing like peer pressure for a good cause. When I swim and I do my swim coaching, my swim training, I can't do it on my own. I always need a group of people around me, and I need a coach around me to get me to where I've got to go. So this is the same type of thing. We'll be coaching you through getting you into the habit of doing what you've got to do, and then everything thereafter will just be running on automatic for you. And for those of you who are running teams at work, we've got a team strengths workshop for you. It's a half-day program, and again, we run that with the groups of 10, 15 people. We do the strength tests with everybody in the company, and then we do a debrief with everybody in a group, and we'll pick out and uncover their greatest talents and how each person's talents work with each other, and how the team together can collaborate to achieve high-performance teams. And if you get high-performance teams, you get productivity, you get engagement, you get profits in the business. Guys, It's been an absolutely wonderful 45 odd minutes. Again, it's felt like 1 minute has gone by. If you want to just click on mikeelger.co or Mike at the Board of Advice, if you want to take up any of these promotions, again, we've cut the cost right down by 50% of what we normally charge. Selecting BOA1, BOA2 or BOA3 as to which one you would like to select, and you can take up the offer by the end of the month. If you've got any questions, again, mikeelger.co or Mike at theboardofadvice.com will get through to us there. And again, I so look forward to chatting with you people. I see 1 or 2 familiar faces there in the crowd. And no doubt, thanks. Somebody just said, excellent, great takeaways. That's what I love to hear. That's what makes my day. So guys, thank you for your time. Look forward to chatting with you soon. Mike Elger, signing out.